this video, and we're going to talk about some recent stimulus check updates that we have. So Biden calls for Congress to pass another coronavirus relief package, but there's no sign of a stimulus deal as holidays approach. And I would agree with that sentiment. I think the reality of the situation we are in is that the chances of a stimulus bill passing before the election are very, very slim. And let me explain why. And by before the election, I mean before January 20th, before the transition from Trump to Joe Biden. Assuming that happens, I know I've gotten some comments saying that, Trump's going to stay in office another 4 years. I'm not going to delve into those waters. I personally believe Trump is going to be leaving office. That, we can agree to disagree on that. We'll see what happens come January 20th. Only one of us can be right. We'll see what happens. But I personally do believe that Trump will be leaving office on January 20th. But we'll see what happens. Of course, I could be wrong. I doubt it, but I could be wrong. But I don't think it's going to pass before January 20th. And let me explain why in this video, and then I'll talk about some of the positives, things that are actually going on. The first reason I think it's not going to pass before January 20th. Number one is political division. I think we are super divided amongst the political groups. You have the Democrats and the Republicans, and then you, of course, have me, who's in the third party, but there's not a lot of people in the third party. Most people are Democrats or Republicans. And as a third partier, I've seen the divide among the Democrats and Republicans separate and continue to expand. I've seen the left moves to the left and the right pulls to the right, and it just seems like everybody is kind of shifting towards their own group, and no one's really working together. So I've seen that type of polarization, and it's to the point now where if you point out a factor that another side doesn't like, people immediately assume you're a part of the other group. We've become very polarized. Like, for example, if you point out something that the left doesn't like, people immediately assume, oh, you must be a member of the right. Or if you point out something that the right doesn't like, people immediately assume, oh, you must be a member of the left. Like, people immediately assume you're in your camp, you're in the other side, which isn't necessarily true. It's gotten to the point where you can't even criticize your own team, or you can't criticize aspects of one team without instantly being assumed to be a part of the other team. So again, that's another big problem. So I think that's the number one issue that's holding us back, because we're still divided over who won the election. We're not near ready to start focusing on stimulus in a serious way. Number two is the coronavirus. The coronavirus is spiraling out of control. Even Republican states like Texas are starting to close down, so it's not just some left-wing thing where it's just the left who wants to close us down. No, even, red Republican governors in Texas closed down. Governors, I think, in North Dakota and South Dakota are closing down. So again, it's not just like right versus left. It's a fact. The coronavirus is not controlled. We're adding 160, 170,000 cases per day. Hospitals are starting to be overrun. I know some people are going to disagree with that, but based on what I've seen, it's a fact. We're not containing the virus. It's spreading much faster than it was, in part because people don't adhere to the policies that the scientists have laid out. People don't social distance. They don't wear masks when it's possible. They don't adhere to basic approaches to what the scientists have laid out. So that's another issue that's holding us back, because the fact of the matter is a lot of local and state governments are focusing all their resources on COVID. They're not necessarily rallying the federal government for more aid. Congress kind of feels like they're in their own little bubble. So that's factoid number two. Factor number three, I would say, is economic. I think that because the stock market is doing actually pretty decent because the Federal Reserve has pumped trillions of dollars into it, it's not like the stock market is actually doing better. It's because the federal government's dumping a ton of money into it to artificially inflate it, which is it's an artificial bubble. It's something that's very temporary. It's very temporary. But I think that the fact that the stock market and some other economic indicators look decent are holding back Congress from maybe spending the money they need to spend. I think that could be a part of what's going on as well. The fact that the stock market and other various economic indicators are not quite as bad as they were. The unemployment rate's slightly lower than it was. Labor force participation rate's slightly higher than it was. There are some good pieces of news, but I think overall it's still bad, and I do believe Congress is incompetent. So what's the good news? I know I'll get some comments. You didn't say any good news. Well, if you watch till the end of the video, you'll get the good news. So the good news is Biden is calling for Congress to pass another coronavirus relief bill. That gives credence to my argument it's going to pass when Biden is in office in January 20th. Another thing is that there is some reports that I've been reading that Joe Biden is going to be able to get a deal done with Mitch McConnell. They've known each other a long time. They seem to have some, sort of respect for each other. So it does seem like there's more likely to be a deal under a Biden administration than probably previously thought. So I think that is a good thing. I think it's good that we will have we will probably have a deal under a Biden administration, even though there is this political division we have. It does seem like Biden has a lot of experience working with Mitch McConnell, and those two will be able to hopefully make a deal. So that's a good piece of news. I've been reading various articles about that, looking at some pieces of information. Biden and Mitch McConnell have worked with each other in the past. Hopefully they can work with each other again. So that is the good news.